Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well, and welcome to this update. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about a metal, a precious metal that many of you have been asking me about, and that is silver. Yes, the other shiny metal. So in a recent video, I talked about the fact, now before we look at the chart, I just want to mention this. In a recent video, I talked about the fact that gold, in fact, was heavily betted against by the commercial hedgers. So commercial hedgers, or the smart money, often called as the insiders, quote unquote. These guys have been betting against extremely, pretty bearish on gold. So they've been essentially shorting gold to an extreme level. And usually when the commercial hedgers, the smart money, is betting heavily against something, like gold in this instance, eventually the markets fall in line with the commercial hedgers, and essentially they move in that direction, which in the case of gold, so far gold actually has moved lower. Now, people say, what about silver? Here's something we have to remember. Gold and silver are highly correlated. So silver and gold have a very strong positive correlation. So usually when gold moves in one direction, silver usually follows. Sometimes one leads the other. It's hard to tell which one, but bottom line is that usually when gold moves up, silver usually follows, and when gold drops, it puts downward pressure on silver as well. So that's always a good thing to remember. So as far as silver is concerned, by the way, I mentioned in a previous video that I think gold has potentially topped. I think there's a high probability that gold has put an intermediate top. As far as silver is concerned, let's take a look at this chart. So I think that there's a high probability that silver may also put in a top, in other words, an intermediate top. I don't mean a long-term top, like forever. I just mean an intermediate top before we see a pullback, a major pullback, potentially some kind of wave 3 pullback, a wave 4 correction pullback, before we see the correction essentially complete, and then we make another move higher again. The weekly chart of silver is pretty much overbought, has been overbought for some time, and also we've seen acceleration extremes on this chart here as well. Bottom line is this, guys. Silver is pulled back on the daily time frame. You can see silver is pulled back to the 21 daily moving average. If silver can break the 21 daily moving average, if we can close twice below that 21 daily moving average, which is about just beneath the 18 or just beneath the 17.8 level. If we can break that 21 moving average on the daily time frame, that opens the door for a much bigger drop, potentially down to 17, where the 55 EMA is, and even potentially lower to 16.5, where the 100 EMA is. So I personally think that in the weeks ahead, we could see a bigger drop, bigger pullback down into those support levels. 16.5 is actually my potentially the level, I think the high probable level we could test in the weeks ahead on silver. By the way, that's only if silver remains below its previous high, below its previous September high. As long as silver remains below its September high of about 19.5, the probabilities are for further downside pressure towards the, again, the 17 and 16.5 levels on the daily time frame, which, by the way, is also about the 21 EMA on the weekly as well. So those are the levels I'm looking at. Bottom line is this. Even though in the short term I'm bearish on silver and gold, bottom line is this. I'm looking for a pullback on these markets to essentially get long again. In other words, I'm looking at this pullback, this drop, as a buying opportunity. So long term, I still think silver and gold have good potential. I think there's a potential for silver and gold to continue to rally higher. But I think in the short term, given the overbought readings, the extremes, and given the fact how the smart money has been betting against gold as well, I think it's likely we're going to see some kind of pullback, retracement, which is